The SwordQuest contest that was sponsored by Atari in the early 1980s has gone down in video game history as one of the greatest, if not the greatest, video game themed contest of all time. But it has also gone down in lore for its abrupt ending and the many questions that reside to this day about the SwordQuest contest and the artifacts tied to it. I am going to dive deep into this one, so sit back, grab a snack and a drink as we take a look at SwordQuest, the last great Atari promotion. In 1980, Atari would release Adventure, a fantasy adventure game that would go on to be considered by many in the gaming community to be one of the most influential titles of all time. It was one of the first games to offer a continue type option. It gave the player an open world, and I use the term open world within the confines of the power of the 2600 and other consoles of that time. The ability to use different items, one at a time, and being able to transport them between different screens, that was a big thing back then, and one of the first Easter egg in video game history. On top of all that, it was the first action-adventure game of its type. Very monumental feats. It did many things first, and will go on to inspire other fantasy games down the road. It was developed by Warren Robinett after he tried out Colossal Cave Adventure, a text-based adventure game made for the PDP-10, and he decided he wanted to create a graphical version of that game. It would go on to sell over 1 million copies, which was a huge deal back then, so it came as no surprise that Atari would want a sequel. And this is where the main topic of this video begins. Adventure 2 was supposed to be bigger in scale and more ambitious than anything Atari had done before. The Easter egg in Adventure became a huge topic among the gaming community back then, but at the same time, by breaking that rule, the game garnered more attention, which might have helped in selling just over 1 million copies, but again, who knows. What is known is that Atari now wanted to capitalize on that concept of finding such hidden items in a game and wanted such a feature to be prevalent in the new Adventure title. To top it all off, the sequel to Adventure would be broken off into 4 separate titles, all with different themes and clues, yet all tied to one main storyline. Now think about that for a minute. That is pretty ambitious for its time, more so when you consider the limitation of the hardware that was the 2600. That was as if Nintendo decided to continue from the original Zelda by breaking the sequel into 4 solo titles, yet all tied to the Zelda universe. Can you imagine such a thing? God damn you, Nintendo, damn you. But Atari was not yet done. They also wanted to market the game as part of a national contest by putting actual artifacts up for prizes worth thousands of dollars, which I'm gonna get into shortly. But wait, I'm not done yet, and neither is Atari. They would also create comic books that told the story of all 4 games, letting you dive into the storyline in more detail, with hidden clues sprinkled throughout them all that would tie them to the contest. But wait, just when you thought that they couldn't add more, they decided to conclude this contest by bringing the 4 winners of each game to their headquarters in California, where they would be inserted into a real-time reality show game where they would battle superhuman-like villains in a maze-like environment. Hold on a second. No, sorry, it's just that I just finished watching this movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger. What was the name of that movie? Oh yeah, Twins.
The Twins. That's right, Twins.
Anyway, so the winners would square off for the ultimate prize, of which only one would walk away with. Only problem is that this never happened. The SwordQuest series would consist of 4 separate games. The 4 titles would be Earthworld, Fireworld, WaterWorld, and airworld, in that specific order. Because Atari was not part of Warner Communications, they had access to DC Comics, which they would use to create 4 comic books, each tied to one game. The best part here is that they were able to get the super talented George Perez, one of the best comic book artists in comic book history. Now let's start with Earthworld, which was released in October of 1982. The first title is based off the zodiac signs. There are 12 rooms in total in the game, which you can see in this picture of the overall map. When you enter a room, it's empty, but if you press the button, And I swear, if anyone out there asks me what button, I'm gonna lose it. It allows you to enter the Zodiac room that resides within that screen, where you can see the items in the room, and in some instances, enter an action screen. Oh, by the way, at the beginning, players couldn't move through the left and right exits of the room. That's because they needed an item to do this. What the hell? How do you limit movement right from the get-go? Can you imagine buying this game as a 7-year-old thinking it was just a run-of-the-mill Atari game and finding out that you can't even go left or right? Oh, Atari. Anyway, you can select an item to take with you from specific rooms, which appear at the bottom of the screen on your inventory bar. However, the space here is limited, so you will have to figure out what items you will need to take and which to drop in a room. 4 of these rooms have set action screens which you must complete. When you do, you will receive certain items that will help you navigate other action screens easier. There's the action screen for Aquarius, Sagittarius, Taurus, and Leo. Leaving certain items in rooms will yield a clue. These clues are a set of numbers, and they're going to flash on the screen very fast, so you have to write them down. And they point you towards the comic book pages, where you will find words carefully mixed into the drawings. There are a total of 10 clues, but you only need 5 of them, since the correct solution to Earthworld is comprised of these 5 words. So it wasn't enough to find the words, which you can actually do on your own by just glancing at the comic carefully, but you needed to put them in the proper order. There are 16 items in total, but only 1 of them is needed to complete the game, which in no way helps with the contest, and it's just so you can complete the game. So let's do the math here for a second. There are 12 rooms and 15 items, meaning there's a combination of 12 to the exponent of 15, meaning you have this amount of combinations in the game with rooms and their placements. That is over 15 quadrillion possible combinations. That's like a lot. Oh, forget that, you can keep the price. That is a ludicrous design, but you know what? Don't take my criticism as word.
I view Earthworld as the kind of a punishment a judge might mete out to a convicted serial killer. I sentence you to serve 6 lifetimes, or to find the correct answers to Earthworld, whichever comes first. Undoubtedly, the 6 lifetimes will come first. So, on the mathematical absurdities alone, I'm sure that any serial killer given the Earthworld sentence would have begged to be tortured on a roasted spit rather than have to endure such insanity. To this day, I have no idea how 9 people managed to discover the correct set of clues that got them invited to the contest in the first place.
You know what? Sometimes I also wonder, if you played this game back then or even now, the ludicrous amount of combinations makes me wonder if anyone at all even solved Earthworld by actually playing the game, versus maybe just looking at the comic book and maybe occasionally bumping into a clue and putting the missing parts all together. Now granted, the in-game clues do point you in the right direction if you caught the slight hint at the beginning of the comic, which had the words prime and number being a slightly different shade of color versus the other words, meaning the clues only on pages that were prime numbers were the correct words. You still had to put them in the right order though, because if you play the game following the comic book as a guide, you got nowhere fast. I can't even make any sort of sense out of any of it even as an adult, so as a kid, I would probably have gone back to playing Donkey Kong. Do you have any idea how messed up that is? Yet somehow some gamers out there did manage to figure out the right combination of words. This guy right here, Stephen Bell, a 20-year-old at the time, would go on to claim the title for the Earthworld game. He and 7 others had deciphered the right words and combinations out of about 5,000 entries. The group of winners were flown to Sunnyvale, California. However, only 7 in total made that trip. One finalist by the name of John D. Hoffman missed the flight and did not make the contest. Anyway, the finalists were seated in a large room with televisions for each of them, all arranged in a circle around a huge zodiac design on the floor. Each contestant had a judge standing behind them as they carefully tracked their progress through 11 levels within 90 minutes, playing a modified version of the Earthworld game just for the contest. Now, according to the article from Video Game Magazine issue 11 in 1983, it is stated that Stephen Bell did this in just 46 minutes. His reward for this accomplishment? A gold-studded talisman that was worth at the time around $25,000, which adjusted for inflation today would put it at about $78,700. That is some serious dough for a game prize, but you know what, Atari, they weren't done yet. The first of the 4 finalists was now set. It was on to Fireworld. Fireworld was released in February of '83. Where Earthworld uses zodiac symbols as their backdrop for the premise, in Fireworld it is the Tree of Life, better known as the Kabbalah. Now, I'm not going to get specific here, but I'm going to briefly explain that the Tree of Life consists of 10 nodes, each dealing with different aspects of humanity and existence. There is an 11th node, but I'm not going to get into that. Google the Kabbalah if you want more details. So right away we have an issue here. Not many people are familiar with the Kabbalah. And we are talking 1983 here. It's not like you can just pull up Google. You had to go down to your local library and hope that they had a book or two that could explain what the Kabbalah is. If Atari wanted the contest to be more widespread, they should have used topics and concepts that more people were familiar with. Then again, they did put up a prize worth $25,000, so yeah, I guess you can't make it too easy. Here's the map to the world, which consists of 10 rooms, like the 10 nodes of the tree. That's about the only thing I can think of that combines the game to the Tree of Life, because other than that, it's just 10 different colored rooms. The gameplay, if you can call it that, consisted of the same thing as Earthworld. You collected items, and you dropped items to maybe get other items, and unlock certain clues. Some rooms will have you performing challenges. Fireworld has a total of 6 of them, versus 4 on Earthworld. Snakes, where you are a bird and you shoot snakes. This one's not that bad. Goblins, where you catch these things right here that are supposed to be goblins. You know, there's no amount or level of imagination that will make these things look like goblins. Now, drugs, on the other hand. Knives, which has you avoiding falling knives. But hey, wait a minute, you know what? These are not knives, they're just really sharp goblins. You can't fool me. Flame dragons, which is... oh, come on, this is just being lazy. Firebirds, which... okay, I know it's Atari, and that the amount of information that you can pack onto a small kilobyte card is extremely limited, but this is just terrible. These here are supposed to be salamanders, which look like spinning knives, which we all know by now are supposed to be sharp goblins who spin around. You know, damn it, Atari, you're not fooling anyone, except maybe colorblind people. Having some specific items in your inventory makes some of these games easier to get through. This game is also the most action-packed in the series, but the hardest and even the worst of them all, due to the high difficulty and glitches in the game. Well, I guess Atari was just in a rush to get the stuff out without properly testing it. Oh, Atari. In the last comic, it was implied by the clue that the pages that were prime numbers would yield the proper words. In this comic, there is a verse on page 2 that has a clue on this line. So this meant that only the clues on pages where the digits would equal to 7 when added were the right ones. Once again, there were only 10 words, but only 5 would get you this phrase. By the time the game and the comic had come out, word had gotten out that you had a better chance to read the comic and figure out the clues than to actually play the game and look for the clues. But you still had to put the words in the right order. This time around, there were more people who figured out the clues and overall phrase. In fact, lots more. So Atari sent out certificates of awards. If they got 1 or 2 words figured out, they were awarded a certificate of Valiant Stripling. If you got 3 to 4 words, you got awarded the certificate of Master Pathfinder. If you got all words correctly, you were given the title of Knight of Chalice. Those that got the ultimate title would be told to write an essay on the Fireworld game in order to get the number down to 50 contestants. Those winners were then taken to Atari headquarters, Holiday Inn, and each player was tasked in completing a specific version of this game again, made just for the contest in a specific amount of time. Michael Rideout was able to complete the game in 50 minutes, and he was the winner. His prize? The coveted Golden Chalice, which was valued at around $25,000. Although this interview excerpt with Michael stated a different amount.
At the moment, definitely not. When I received the chalice, I also got a sheet for taxation purposes that stated its value at around $21,600 or $22,600, something like that. I forget exactly which it was. That was the value I had to put down on my income taxes.
Now, he was allowed to take pictures with it before it was taken by Atari and then delivered to him to a bank in Atlanta, unlike Stephen Bell, who was allowed to take the prize with him. Want to hear a messed up trivia bit? The PAL release of this game had no comic book, no poster, no entry form for the contest or anything on the box that indicated that it was part of a contest. That was actually the same thing that happened with the PAL version of earthworld. Clearly, Atari wanted to keep this contest US based only. From a business standpoint, it makes sense. Can you imagine having to fly different contestants from all parts of the world to California and then back? Atari now had 2 of the 4 finalists in place. It was on to WaterWorld. The third title will be the last one produced at the time for the contest. It will be released only in limited edition in 1984 and only through mail to Atari Age members. However, WaterWorld was available to order to all the final contestants right after the fireworld contest had concluded, since Atari revealed to them of the limited edition availability. This is where I think some people started to get an inkling that maybe Atari was looking to weasel its way out of completing the contest. Here's another excerpt from that same interview with Michael regarding this matter.
When I was in the fireworld contest, there was a group of people that had been in earthworld that said to me, "Now, if Atari ever comes to you, make sure you don't agree to anything about canceling the contest." I guess they had a suspicion that Atari might try to do that. After a while, I got a letter from Atari stating that they wanted to cancel the contest. They offered Steven and myself $15,000 each to agree, and they offered a smaller amount, maybe like $2,000, to each of the finalists for WaterWorld. I think the reason Steven and I got more than everyone else was because as winners of the first 2 contests, we had a definite chance of winning the sword. Everyone involved had to agree, or else the contest would continue. I tried to call Steven and some of the other people from the contest to see what they were going to do, but I couldn't get in touch with anyone. I talked it over with my father and decided to accept the offer, figuring that someone else would decline.
So by this time in '84, the video game crash was already in full swing, and Atari had lost some staggering wealth during that time.
Warner Communications said today that its once booming Atari business lost another $180 million in the third quarter, for total losses this year of more than $500 million.
So naturally, Warner needed to get rid of Atari from their books and sold it to Jack Tramiel in '84. As soon as the sale was completed, Atari Corporation pulled the plug on the entire contest.
Shut it down, Mr. B.
But that didn't stop people from playing WaterWorld and entering the contest. The fact that this game was only sold through mail orders makes this a rare game for any video game collector out there. WaterWorld is based off the Kundalini chakra, which is the power that resides within the body and can be channeled through 7 different points in the body called chakras. I'm not gonna get into more detail than that. The game has 7 rooms only to match the chakras and 16 items in total. So if we bring math into the conversation again, we end up with 7 to the power of 16, that is 33.2 trillion. Seems Atari was trying to make this one a little bit easier, since WaterWorld is the only title of the SwordQuest games to bring an actual hint book, which you see right here. So based on this hint book alone, we know that there are 7 hidden words in the comic of WaterWorld and that only 4 of them are the right ones. Page 2 of the comic gave you an important hint: powers of Prime. The correct words here were: the prize for the WaterWorld winner would have been the crown, also valued at $25,000. Based on the number of rooms, and this one has the fewest of any of the 3 games, items, and the hint book, I feel Atari could see the writing on the wall and was trying to end the contest as soon as possible without making it too obvious. However, here's where things start to get a little bit hazy. Some out there, 1% more specifically than others, according to rumors, and this is what they are as of the making of this video, is that Atari was obligated by law to finish this contest. So the rumors go on to say that there was a contest that took place to crown the winner of WaterWorld behind closed doors, and the identity of this individual was kept confidential. Because if someone did come forward, then Atari would have to admit to the WaterWorld showdown taking place, whereas Atari had told many participants that the contest was officially over after the Atari buyout. The problem with everything I just mentioned about the WaterWorld contest is pretty much uncorroborated, and there is not a single shred of actual proof or eyewitnesses or photos that could confirm such claims. Michael Rideout had this to say on an interview with Digital Press.
They, Atari, chose the finalists, although, if I remember correctly, they reduced the number to 15 instead of 50. This caused a lot of people to get upset. This was right at the time Atari was sold, and everything went into limbo. I don't think the crown was ever awarded.
But here's the thing. This is Atari we're talking about, the same company that took hundreds upon hundreds of unsold ET and other 2600 games and secretly buried them in New Mexico, while denying such a thing for decades before they were actually unearthed back in 2014. So while these rumors are unfounded and just that, rumors, based on the track record of Atari, you can't really look past those rumors to 100%. There's always that small part in the back of your mind that is telling you, well, you know what? This is Atari and they did Atari stuff back then. So this leaves us with Airworld. And this game was never finished. It never even got to a prototype stage. At one point, someone even created a fake prototype cart of this game with Photoshop pictures in the hopes of catching an unsuspecting buyer off guard. But luckily, that person was ousted by the gaming community. There wasn't even a comic book written to finish the SwordQuest story at all. But we do know that this title was going to be based on the I Ching, which in English roughly translates to Book of Change or Text of Change. It is basically a collection and ideas that is aimed to enhance and provide insight into the nature of existence. There are 64 chapters or hexagrams that make up the scripture in total. Airworld, according to an interview with Todd Fry, was going to be the most ambitious of the 4 SwordQuest titles, with up to 64 totally unique screens that would be somewhat related to the text and the yin and yang. The prize for the Airworld contest would have been the Philosopher's Stone, possibly my favorite out of all the other prizes with the exception of the Ultimate Prize, which I'm going to get into shortly. With the contest completely scrapped by Atari, Stephen Bell and Michael Rideout, the first 2 winners of the earthworld and fireworld games, were each paid $15,000 by Atari and given each an Atari 7800 console as a consolation for not being able to finish the contest. Which brings us back to the rumors and statements made by some out there that Atari was legally obligated to finish the contest. Now, if these statements are indeed a fabrication, the fact that Steven and Michael got paid a cash amount and given a 7800 console and a game of their choosing lends some credibility to these rumors. Why else would Atari pay them off unless there was some sort of contractual obligation by Atari to do so? In April of 1985, Robert Ruiz Jr., one of the earthworld finalists, sent a letter to Electronic Games magazine urging gamers to write to him and at the same time demand that Atari finish the contest, claiming a source inside Atari Legal stated that the new management of Atari was supposedly intent on finishing the contest. Now, we all know in hindsight that this never happened. As far as Airworld is concerned, the game would be completed almost 40 years later and included in the Atari 50th anniversary game, which was released in 2022. The game is not a direct port of the game Todd Fry had envisioned, but was rather completed in code meant to mimic the 2600 hardware. There are 4 challenges in this port of the game, and the premise here is the same as the other titles. Collect certain items, place them in specific rooms in specific order to get a clue on what room to go to next. There are 64 rooms here and a small map at the bottom left to help you see what section you are on. Each room also has a certain pattern design to help differentiate them from one another. Based on the comments by Todd Fry regarding the design of Airworld, this game and his vision of the final product and what it would have been do not resemble one another. Your prize for finishing Airworld is the screen right here. Now, is this supposed to be the ultimate prize for SwordQuest? In other words, the ultimate sword of sorcery? And that was the final prize that would have been awarded to one of the 4 finalists. Now, this is where the mystery gets real thick. What happened to that sword? what happened to the Philosopher's Stone and the Crown. 3 prizes that were worth altogether around $100,000 back in the early 1980s. That's just over $300,000 when adjusted for inflation today. That's a lot of money. So what exactly happened to them? Did the WaterWorld contest really take place? It's hard to think that someone did win the prize and not have anyone at all come forward with a picture or even information to the whereabouts of the crown, whether it be the actual owner or someone that they know. Maybe Atari had them sign an NDA of some type, and maybe that is the reason why we have never heard anything from the winner. Or it could be that Atari faked the contest. It wouldn't be the first time Atari would lie about something.
The Atari Jaguar is 64 bits.
Many rumors out there have said that the final 3 prizes went to Jack Tramiel since he bought Atari. Others have said that the prizes were not part of Atari, but rather the Franklin Mint, which was part of Warner Communications, and therefore the prizes belonged to them and were not part of the Atari buyout. Some out there have even questioned their existence. Here's another excerpt from that Michael Rideout interview.
They did exist. All of the prizes were on display and well guarded at the fireworld contest. The Philosopher's Stone really took my breath away. All of the pictures showed it with the cover on, but they had the cover off at the contest, and the actual stone was this large chunk of white jade.
Some have stated that the prizes were kept by Franklin Mint and scrapped and melted down to be sold off, making the talisman and the chalice the only 2 surviving prizes of this amazing contest. Unfortunately, the talisman has also been lost, as it was revealed that Stephen Bell allegedly got rid of it by selling it to pay for school. Now, whether this is accurate or not, I can't say. So it seems that Michael Rideout, as of the making of this video, is the only person to still own an actual prize from the SwordQuest contest, the chalice. So in some way, he is the owner of the holy grail of gaming. I mean, look at it. It's like a treasure that Indiana Jones himself would hunt down.
That belongs in a museum.
So by now, it's been 42 plus years since the most ambitious contest to ever hit the video gaming landscape was started. 4 games, 4 complicated puzzles for each one of them, culminating in 4 finalists, all of them coming together for one final showdown at Atari headquarters, or Holiday Inn, whichever, to award one winner with one of the most expensive prizes possibly ever for a gaming contest of this type. A full-size steel sword with a handle made of solid gold encrusted in gems and other little trinkets, and priced at around $50,000. The contest also had a tie-in with 4 comic books that contain clues to solving these puzzles, with a marketing campaign that is rarely seen today, much less anywhere in the gaming landscape. Esport competitions are not taken into consideration here. When Atari and the entire gaming landscape imploded in 1983, the contest would ultimately be cancelled and the remaining prizes scattered to the winds to unknown fates. At a time when social media as we know it today did not exist, the lore of the contest alone was something truly wonderful to behold. Can you imagine, as a kid, taking a look at these prizes in a magazine and fantasizing about winning such a contest, much less being part of one? I didn't even hear about this contest until the late 90s thanks to the internet, as it blossomed into the information Goliath of info it is today.
Take a spin, now you're in with the techno set. You're going surfing on the internet.
As a kid, I was too young to fully comprehend the premise of any of these titles. The puzzles are way too cryptic for me, and the gameplay alone would not have been enough to keep me entertained for more than maybe 10 minutes, tops. And that right there was a major problem with these games. They were not games. To me, they were digital puzzles, and if you approach them with the mindset of playing a video game, well, you know what? The majority out there found nothing but disappointment from the get-go. After all, these games are all about walking from room to room with an occasional break in the sequence by an action screen, which could be completed in seconds or become a true pain on your side, and then deciphering which items to take, which items to drop, or how to continue the sequence properly, followed by a clue. It was just all too much. The SwordQuest contest lives on today thanks to the lore, rumors, and interviews collected over the years. It is a contest that will never be duplicated again, especially in today's modern gaming landscape, where developers and companies in general are more likely to nickel and dime you with loot boxes and microtransactions before they even plunk down any sort of money to give away. Plus, the rise of social media will make it very difficult for such a contest to exist today. Share your comments with us all, and until next video, keep watching and keep gaming.